Welcome back to another NCART movie review. Today we have Rebel Moon, and honestly, this is probably just the worst movie Zack Snyder has ever made, so let's just jump into this review. Don't forget to like and subscribe.
The plot of this film is essentially Star Wars Rogue One, except you subtract the Death Star and instead you import an Imperial force that is attacking friendly, non-violent village of farmers, which is just the most typical storyline that we've seen over and over. I mean, it is literally the Rey Skywalker origin story. Now, we know Zack Snyder wanted to make a Star Wars movie. He pitched it to them. They said no. So he said, okay, screw you then. I'll make my own Star Wars franchise with Netflix. This movie pays homage to lots of other sci-fi films and other sci-fi series that we all know and love, like Star Wars, Star Trek, and very heavily like Riddick. And this movie had an $85 million budget, and the CGI was not good enough at all. Some of the backshots, pause. Some of the backdrops for this film were absolutely horrendous and so noticeable. Like, it would just have this terrible backdrop that did not blend at all into the foreground. It almost looked like an old school Microsoft background where it had like the rolling green hills. That's how bad it looked. No good. And that was a recurring theme in this movie.
And just to further the plot point as well, Sofia Boutella, I know she's a great actress. I've seen her in The Mummy. I've seen her in Atomic Blonde. This movie, she mogged me the whole movie. Why is she staring deep into my soul without anything behind her eyes? If that's an adaptation of the character, fair enough. But I didn't even take it that way when I was watching this film. I took it like she didn't know how to further the character development, so she just thought, let me stare into the camera as deep as I can and somehow show emotion. It didn't do anything for the character, and it just looked out of place and odd. To
convey emotion in one scene, she literally just is about to hop on this ship, right? And she does this sort of look over her shoulder, stare off into the distance, and there's just no emotion. Why'd you do that? I felt nothing.
Yeah, the scenes shouldn't be there. Are we connecting to these characters? No, we're not. Obviously, this film's trying not to go for that. Yet, they're putting these random scenes in where they have that emotional build. It's like, we don't need that. Just show me her kicking ass for an hour and a half. That's all it needed to do. And it felt like it was trying to build more storylines and plots and trying to further the character development, which really didn't do anything. And even I picked the twist in this whole film. Now, a lot of reviews and a lot of people have said that they like that part of the film where you kind of get this mysterious build-up and this thriller. I saw right through it. I mean, maybe because I know Zack Snyder's work, but once again, didn't hit me right. I didn't like it.
Another thing that Zack Snyder did wrong in this film, there's so many things he did. This isn't a dreadful movie, but it's not a good movie at all. Another thing that he didn't do well was that he spread his characters far too thin. Now, Sofia Boutella, her whole premise in this film was to essentially run around and assemble the A-Team. And what happens with this is half the time is spent going from different planet to find these characters, and you just don't care about these characters at all. You have the typical cliche characters. You got the drunk Irish dude who's, funny and who's a trustworthy guy. You've got the Asian sort of samurai sword wielding character who's just the most typical typecasting ever. And you have the brother and sister duo who are, of course, leading the rebels and are leading this fight back against the Imperials, which you've just seen over and over again. But the problem is you only get about 10, 15 minutes, 20 minutes on these characters, and then it just moves on to the next one, and then on to the next one. You don't care what their motives are, because you don't even care who they are. All their joint motivations is that they don't like the Imperials. Come on. How many times have we seen that over and over again? Yes, we don't like the Imperials, we don't like the invaders. Okay, but find something deeper than that. Find something more. Whereas Zack just had these 4 or 5 characters that no one cared about. I didn't even know their names. That's how I know I don't care about them. I didn't even take the time to know their names. I just know one of them was Cyborg from Justice League, apart from the girl that was mogging me the whole film.
Yeah, and he should go in depth with these characters. If you watch the Justice League, he goes into each character's depth quite well.
He just keeps rushing into things. You can build a universe and a franchise without having to rush everything in the first film. I know he thinks he needs to. And the worst part is, this is part 1 of a part 2 series. Why did he rush so much in this first film?
It doesn't want to make me go watch the part 2 even fucking remotely. Tell me in this film what you found interesting about it, because I bet you can't tell me one thing.
No, nothing. Not one thing, honestly. I mean, the only thing that was remotely interesting was when the samurai character her swords turned into lightsabers, which is just directly stolen from Star Wars.
How much did you pay for that? How much did you pay for that little promotion?
Even the choreography in the battle, in the fighting scenes, was just absolutely ridiculous in this movie. There's a scene right at the start of the movie where Sofia Vergara is...
Boutella.
Where Sofia Boutella is fighting, and she's fighting this whole group of people. There's about 30 of them in this barn that she's fighting, right? And one by one, these guys fight her. One by one. They have guns trained on her, okay? She walks in with a fucking pickaxe, and she takes them on one by one. One by one. These guys are standing in line. They're literally standing in line just going, then she takes one down. Then she takes one down. Then she takes one down. Then she takes one. What? Why are they not fighting her all at once? It's her one taking on all of them.
She was farming wood when she went in there prior to, and then built a box around them.
She literally, like, I've never seen anything like it where they're all waiting for their shots. And then when we get to the samurai actress, she's in a fight scene with this horrible looking spider. And the spider is waiting for her to attack it before it reattacks. She's trying to protect these kids. And then the kid's like standing there like frightened. And the spider just sort of looks at her and just stands there waiting for her to come and attack it.
That was the only probably good scene in the film because the makeup and the aesthetics and the prosthetics was the best thing of that film. How in-depth they went with that spider. I reckon that's where all the $85 million budget went to, was just that scene alone. Because everything else was super slow-mo, save them a lot of money, save them a lot of time with progressing with characters, and just show me the action, like I said before. That's all we care about.
And do not get me started on the slow motion of this film. My God. Zack Snyder needs to be banned from ever using slow motion again. He used enough slow-mo in this one film to fucking satiate the need of slow motion for the rest of our lives. Every second scene is slow-mo. I cannot believe how much I saw. I actually thought that I was going to like be in slow motion for the rest of my life watching this film because every single scene had slow motion. It took away from the weight of the scene immediately. And you could pick when it was coming to. That's the worst part. Like, you would be watching this movie and then you just go, oh, here we go, it's about to be another slow motion scene. There was literally a slow motion scene for grain. Someone dropped some seeds, slow motion. For what reason? None. And there was literally a bit where they were in the cantina and I was just waiting for the dun 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 dun. It was literally stolen where Han Solo is literally in the cantina and he's about to shoot that guy. Like, who shot first? That scene was literally shot for shot in this movie.
Now let's address the wardrobe in here because it was so off-putting to see what was on there. It was immediately introduced to a 1940s Germany Nazi uniform. 100% he was like all in on them looking like pure Nazis. I don't know if this was an implant for a bit of a quick development so you know what the villain's motives are, what he's all about and what his ideas are, because that's very easy to get. Or it was just like, no, I don't want to be like Star Wars and now we're going to put this shit on them. Now, to be honest, the fits did look good. Let's be honest here. The fits looked good. Just why were they Nazi uniforms though? That was the weird thing. It was just kind of like a little bit out of pocket. At the very start of the film, you were introduced to Vikings and them wearing like lumberjack uniforms almost, like commoners. Like they weren't dripped down. It was very weird.
In all honesty, the fits were good, but it just felt out of place. The Imperial Army that comes in is genuinely Nazis. How does that make sense? It was just stupid plot points just pulled from nowhere, essentially. The main bad guy, Admiral Atticus, just had a complete sadomasochist outlook on life. Like, the man was getting literally hentai'd by some tentacles at one point in the film. I don't know where that came from. I think Zach might have accidentally snuck one of his fantasies in there just quickly, or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah, I think Zach was shooting another film in the midst of shooting this film as well, because the CGI for those anime tentacle things was absolutely dreadful. And there was nothing interesting about his character apart from world domination.
And following on from that, with the acting, I mean, Charlie Hunnam, I know he said he dialed down his accent because he didn't want people to, he thought that people wouldn't understand him, but since Sons of Anarchy, this man's accent has been all over the shop, and it sort of takes you out of any sort of film that he's in because he just sounds ridiculous. I don't know if that's a proper Irish accent that he was dropping in that, but it sounded dreadful. It just sounded so out of place. I don't understand what he was actually going for. And Digimon Honsu was just completely underutilized in this film. I think he had about one line in the whole movie. He was literally in it and just was quiet in the background the whole time. Like, he's one of the best actors for that sort of role that he had in this film, which was to be a once great general who has now fallen off to the wayside. And he literally had 3 lines. I don't even know why he was in the movie. Has he fallen that far that he's now just an extra in these films? I don't think so. I think he's a great actor. So they should have utilized him way more. You could tell that most of his scenes on this were cut. I'd love to know how much was cut out of this movie. I reckon Zack Snyder probably had 10 hours worth of footage.
To wrap this review up, I'm going to give this film a 5% because this film had nothing redeemable about it. There was nothing I could find even remotely positive. And I'm trying to be nice here, but 5% is only for Sofia Boutella and Charlie Hunnam. If Charlie Hunnam could fix that Irish accent, just a bit, it sounded off, sounded very American. half the time. But anyway,
My rating for this film is along the same lines. I didn't want to give it a rating. That's how rubbish it was. Acting terrible, CGI terrible, no original ideas. If you ordered Star Wars off Wish, this is what you would get. And I hope Part 2 never comes out because I don't even want to watch it.
you better get cancelled, I'm telling you. If we can cancel anything, cancel this.
And tone down the slow-mo because it's just dreadful how much slow motion's in this film.
Yeah, just to negate what you've done in this film, I want this next film on ×2.
Yeah, you may as well watch this film in ×2 actually. Watch this movie in ×2. One, it'll finish quicker, which is just great for everybody. And two, it'll actually look like a normal paced movie because it's all in slow-mo, so yeah.
Exactly. Anyway, guys, this has been another NCut movie review. Don't forget to like, sub, and share it up so everyone can know that how bad this movie is so they can not waste their time as well.
Let us know if you actually liked it or not. We'd love to hear if people like this or not.
Anyway, guys, it's been another NCut movie review. Peace, we out.
Peace.
And cut.